So hello, welcome to a special edition of the Royal Rota. We are actually back in the studio. You might have noticed in the last couple of ones we've been in rather exotic places. Cuba was one, Morocco was another, but we're back here in the studio in London. But we're doing this very quickly tonight because we want to discuss the plans that have been announced today by Buckingham Palace about the arrival, the imminent arrival of the newest member of the royal family, of course, the baby of Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. And to discuss all this, we're joined in this contemporaneous edition of the Royal Rota by Roya Nikkhah, who's the royal correspondent of the Sunday Times. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Your first time in this studio.
Yes.
But actually not someone who's actually been at the Lindo wing many times.
I'm a veteran, yes. I was there for Prince George, yeah.
A veteran of the Lindo. So you've done Prince George at the Lindo wing, Princess Charlotte at the Lindo wing, and we all here did Prince Louis last year. We're obviously very new to this game. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. Lizzie's here as well. We've got a lot to discuss, haven't we?
Yep.
So where do we start? So today there was an announcement from Buckingham Palace, because Buckingham Palace is the new home of the Sussex household. Now they've formally done the split, both in terms of their residential home. Harry and Meghan are in Frogmore near Windsor Castle, and the office is moving, if it hasn't moved already, to Buckingham Palace. So what do we get from Buckingham Palace today? We basically said, they told us we want to keep as much of this as private as possible.
Yeah, I think it wasn't an enormous surprise. It was quite predictable, but it was effectively them saying Harry and Meghan are going to keep the media, certainly at arm's length, and do it very much their way on their timescale, with news being announced really only when they feel ready to tell us about it, which has come as a bit of a disappointment to a lot of people. Certainly, I think elements...
Say disappointment, not a great surprise, because us royal correspondents and producers have all been having this sort of conversation for a few weeks, thinking we reckon this is where it's going.
Yes, I think, you know, if anyone who knows Harry even a little bit, if you've reported on him for a while, you know that his attitude towards the media is in flux, and it changes. But his stance at the moment is very much, I have a new wife, I'm going to have a new family, that's for me and us to enjoy. And people understand that, but it's definitely disappointing, certainly for the royal watchers, you know, because a royal baby is a national celebration, and I think everyone just feels they want to join in. And
we witnessed that. I mean, again, we didn't do... I was doing a different job when George was born and when Charlotte was born, but actually we witnessed that with Prince Louis last year, didn't we? Everyone said, who's going to be bothered about a third baby? And what happened at the Lindo wing?
Well, I mean, there were huge numbers of press, huge numbers of fans, people came out of the hospital to see. It was a really special moment to be part of, and you could feel a real kind of energy around the Lindo wing, and people were genuinely excited and anticipating them coming out of those famous doors. So. But
what was OK for 2018 and was OK for William and Kate ain't happening in 2019.
No, and I think we've been, as you say, we've been expecting this a while with Prince Louis and the other children. The media plans have been in place for a couple of months in advance of the baby, and now we're a couple of weeks out, and there was nothing official until this morning. So, which is a good point, isn't it? Because actually, Prince Louis was born on April the 23rd, wasn't it? It was St George's Day, and we had the media briefing from Kensington Palace way back in February. We're currently April, the whatever it is now. The baby's due any day, and we got the statement today that we're keeping this as privately as we possibly can.
Yeah, I think there have been some plans that have been changing around not only Kensington Palace and the move with the division of the households, but also I think Harry and Meghan probably have gone from a stance of wanting to do things even more privately than has been announced today. And yes. I think some media aides have probably helped to talk them around into agreeing there'll at least be a media facility in Windsor. So I think it's been...
Do you actually think we've gone from a position of no media at all?
Yes.
I sort of think we have,
exactly
to a position of, OK, we'll have a controlled, what we call a pool arrangement, where there'll be one photographer, one broadcast camera, that sort of thing.
And giving us, the broadcasters, a facility within the Long Walk in Windsor, which isn't a million miles from Frogmore Cottage. So they are giving us some kind of facility.
But our understanding is the Duke and Duchess have been moved to that position from a position of, actually, we don't really want any photographs of this baby at all.
I think that probably would have been their starting point in the negotiations of what's realistic to expect. But I think the position they've reached now is that they're going to have all the privacy they want. We may or may not know when this baby arrives. It could take a day for them to tell us. It could take longer. They'll do it in their own time, which isn't entirely surprising, but it's going to be a bit of a disappointment.
And also, we don't expect to be told where it's happening. So be that at Frogmore Cottage, where they are now living since they moved out of Kensington Palace, be that at the Lindo Wing or Frimley Park Hospital nearby, or Wrexham Park in Slough, wherever they decide to have this baby, the palace is going to do what they can to get Meghan in and out of that maternity unit before they've told us where she is.
Well, I think what we've definitely sort of gleaned in the last few days is that she wants, if she can, to try and have a home birth in the first instance. And if that doesn't happen, we're not going to be told which hospital it's going to be, but it's not going to be the Lindo Wing. Either way, it'll be somewhere much closer to
Because that's too far. From anyone watching this from outside the UK or doesn't understand the geography of London, Windsor is a good, 30 minutes if the traffic's going your way from London, possibly an hour sometimes. Yeah. It is quite a journey to get from there to the Lindo Wing, where Harry's brother decided to have his 3 children. Well, he didn't have them, his wife had them.
But I think also that it's not the Lindo Wing, not just because of distance. It's not the Lindo Wing because I think Harry and Meghan do not want to do anything that has been done before by William and
exactly.
Kate.
So they want to do things differently. And I mean, let's be clear. I mean, why should anyone actually do it in the same way? There was some discussion, wasn't there, particularly with Prince Louis, that Kate appeared on those steps within 6 or 7 hours. We had that discussion earlier. Quite how many hours was it? Born at 11:01, left hospital at
just before 6,
17:59 or something. Okay, so 6 or 7 hours, and there was a lot of discussion at the time, and really still is, about should you encourage mothers to look that good within hours of giving birth? And maybe it is creating the wrong impression.
I don't think... I felt a bit sorry for the Cambridges with that, because I think Kate just felt, with her 3rd child, she felt confident enough to come out. But their decision is always, they don't want to put the hospital out. That's why they leave so quickly. It's chaos.
So all of us lot will clear off. Yes.
So all of us will clear off. It's not because she feels she wants to set a unrealistic standard of motherhood with her 3rd child. It's because they are very mindful of not putting the hospital and all the other patients, people having babies there, putting them out.
I remember other couples coming out.
Looking so startled, going, oh my God.
And actually, I mean, I don't know whether we can show the picture here, but when we were editing the piece just now for tonight's evening news, we found some of the pictures of the bank of photographers that were there.
Yeah.
Now, whether you're royal or non-royal, to come out of hospital within a few hours and be faced with hundreds of camera lenses in front of you, that's a pretty daunting prospect, isn't it, for anyone?
It would be very full on.
Even for someone like Meghan, who's used to the cameras.
Of course it would be. But Meghan didn't have to do that, and she's not going to do that. I think there are other ways to make the nation feel as if they are sharing with that sort of celebration and celebratory moment without feeling you have to stand on the steps of, a wing or any hospital within hours. I think the position that they've announced today is the other end of the spectrum. I think it would be lovely if there's only going to be one camera and one crew allowed to see them, one journalist. If a few more photographers who've been doing this for years and do a brilliant job when they do it and are respectful and are mindful and do follow the rules set by the palace, could have had access.
Which is the point, isn't it? Most photographers, most journalists, most cameramen follow the rules. We stand where we're told to stand. We do as we are instructed by the palace, and to create the impression that we're all sort of like hiding in hedgerows trying to get pictures surreptitiously, it's just basically wrong, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we do abide by the rules, which is why we're invited on engagements, because we do know where to stand and how to behave. And I think, we spoke to Arthur Edwards earlier, and he did say how disappointed he was and how this was going to be kind of one of the moments of the year, and a royal baby is as special as something like a royal wedding. So I think there is a lot of disappointment this time.
I mean, I did that interview with Arthur, I detected, because don't forget, I mean, we're talking about the last 3 Lindo Wings. He was there in 1982 for Prince William and 1984 for Prince Harry. He said to us tonight, you could just see his fluffy red head when he came out of hospital. I mean, I think there is a disappointment from some, because it's a national moment, the birth of a royal baby, especially a royal couple with the profile as high as Harry and Meghan's.
It is, and that's probably where we're coming from. We see them as a very public couple. She had a very public baby shower in New York. But that said, yes, they have a high profile. She is still a woman giving birth, and she is still entitled to do that in the way that 99% of women do, which is privately.
Yes.
And I think that's something that we need to come to terms with, the media need to come to terms with, because that's clearly her choice. Yes, we're going to be disappointed, but there is no hard and fast protocol or tradition when it comes to royal births.
And there's always this thing like breaking royal protocol, which is complete nonsense about whether it's the
Queen had her children at home. The Queen had, so she has set protocol having children at home. You know,
she had her 4 children at Buckingham Palace and Clarence House.
The top dog had her children at home. So,
Queen, the top dog.
So she's actually following tradition from the chief.
And if you take it back another generation, the Queen herself was born at her maternal grandparents' home in Mayfair
Street. Yeah, so, exactly. We will get over the disappointment, and I'm sure we'll all cover it, you know, with joyous celebration. Those first pictures, you know, of that photo call within the first few days are going to be, you know, enormous.
Of course, yes, absolutely. And I mean, it doesn't change the fact that there is not just a UK demand because it's the British royal family, but a global demand for this kind of picture. That demand exists, whether you're going to have, you know, 100 cameras outside the Lindo wing photographing the new baby, 7th in line to the throne as he or she will be, or whether it is, you know, just 3 cameras inside a very controlled environment in Windsor Castle.
Yeah, I mean, there's huge international interest in the royals generally, but this couple particularly, Meghan, has links to America and Canada, and there's huge appetite there to see this couple and their baby. So, yeah, those pictures are going to go global. And
again, Americans, the Germans are really interested. I always laugh with our Australian colleagues that they do more royal stories than we do. New Zealand, as we experienced when we were there during the
Australians have all claimed a bit of this baby because the announcement came when we were in Australia that they were expecting. So lots of people said to us, well, we're going to think of this one as ours.
Well, it's their royal family, of course.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So they feel they have a stake in it. So.
As Canada, I mean, actually, can you name all 15 or 16 realms?
Well, you've just been to most of them in the Caribbean, Chris, so why don't you...
Well, actually, we only went to Barbados and Grenada, but anyway, we didn't do the entire tour, but as good as it was. But yeah, I think there is the point, isn't it? An international couple with, I think in terms of the royal family internationally, they are probably the most important couple, aren't they? I mean, okay, the Queen has a profile that no one can exceed, but in terms of the royal family's image abroad, it's Harry and Meghan who are doing wonders for the royal family at the moment, isn't it?
Well, yes, of course they are, and they've done 2 very high-profile foreign trips recently, Australia and the South Pacific and Morocco. But I think, you know, you've been on tours with William and Kate and the kids, actually, and they get a pretty massive reception wherever they go. So we've got to be very conscious about not pitting couples against each other and who gets the biggest reception where. But I think for the royal family's image abroad, I think William and Kate are probably still up there as the people that sort of globally are identified with. But you know, Meghan and Harry are a very good news story when it comes to the royal family. So yes, they're doing great things, and we now see with all the Queen's Commonwealth Trust work they're going to be doing, and he's a Commonwealth Youth Ambassador, that is going to go more global in the years ahead. Yes,
I mean, let's just recap on the official statement that came from, we have to say Buckingham Palace now, I still want to say Kensington Palace every time we talk about Harry and Meghan, but this came from Royal Communications at Buckingham Palace. Their Royal Highnesses have taken a personal decision to keep the plans around the arrival of their baby private. And I note this word private comes up in the next sentence as well. The Duke and Duchess look forward to sharing the exciting news with everyone once they had an opportunity to celebrate privately as a new family. Now, that's them as a new family of 3. It's also them with Doria Ragland, Meghan's mum, who we are expecting to come over from the States at some point. And obviously, one would imagine the Prince of Wales and Duchess of Cornwall will be there in Frogmore at some point as well. You know, how long do you think it will be until you get to the point, well, actually, they want to show the world their new baby? Days, weeks, months?
It says in that statement, within a few days.
Right.
But look, we know that they're doing things their way. It depends how Meghan feels. It depends how she recovers from the birth. It depends how easy a birth she has.
And how well the baby is, of course, as well.
It depends how well the baby is. If there are any complications, she may need a few extra days to recover. It may be a week. We just don't know. Let's hope it's on a Saturday for the Sunday newspapers.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with this, is that you can tell that if it's not right and it doesn't feel right to them, it doesn't matter if it's 3 days or a week or 2 weeks. I think they'll do it exactly when they're ready.
And do you think a lot of this is born from Harry's historical issues with the press? I mean, we could take a lot of this back to the fact that some very irresponsible members of the paparazzi were blamed for the death of his mother. He's had a very difficult relationship with the press, hasn't he? And I think Meghan's experienced a bit of that as well. I mean, you know, one of the first stories that I think she encountered in the press was a front page of a tabloid newspaper saying that she was on so one of her scenes from Suits was in a pornographic site. Now, those sort of stories, they last long in one's mind, and you can see that Harry and Meghan would therefore be very cautious towards members of the press. No matter how most of us behave, it is the actions of those more irresponsible end of the spectrum that will set the tone.
Yes, I get what you're saying, and there's no doubt that what happened to Harry's mother sits with him and the Duke of Cambridge, and always will in their approach to the press. But actually, I think a few years ago, Harry had got to a pretty good place with the press. If you travelled with him to, New Zealand a few years ago, as I did, or to Lesotho, he had got to a good place in his mind. I think he was at ease with a lot of us and the coverage, and he took the bad press with the good press, and it was rolling off him a little bit more. Since Meghan's come into his life, quite understandably, he feels very protective towards his wife. He's about to have a new family. He feels extremely protective. And yes, I think all those feelings have flooded back. Of wanting to keep the media at a distance where he can and control it where he can, and that's his choice. I
also think it might be to do with, Harry has often talked about how he would have loved to have been normal, and this could be partly giving this child, who'll be 7th in line to the throne, some kind of normal upbringing, and it's not normal to start your life on the steps of the Lindo wing, faced with banks of cameras. So, he might be trying to create a normal environment for this child from the very start.
And the other key difference is that George, Charlotte and Louis are in, if we like, positions 3, 4 and 5, isn't it, in terms of heir to the throne line. This baby is going to be number 7. We don't think, unless the Queen makes an announcement soon, we don't think it's going to be an HRH, His or Her Royal Highness. So very much a baby, a little bit more like the mould of, you could say, Zara and Mike Tyndall and their children, Lena and Mia. You always catch me on those ones. It could be a little bit much more. They want their baby, yes, they've got a big profile as Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, but they want their baby to have a childhood a lot more like about the Tyndalls or Peter and Morton Phillips's children. I'm
sure they do, and this baby might never even take on official royal duties. But there's no escaping from the fact that there will always be enormous public interest, not just media, but public interest in the baby, because they are very big news. And Harry is beloved by the nation. We love him. He's the most popular member of the royal family, often in polls after the Queen, sometimes even ahead of the Queen. So I think it's not just about, media and wanting to keep us at a distance. I also think that you've got to be realistic. When you are a sort of global megastar like Harry is, yes, of course you want to give your child as normal a life as possible. But actually, what does that mean? That child is probably going to have a life very different to most children, and probably actually very different to the Tyndall's children, just because it's going to be living in such a much more high-profile existence.
I mean, aren't we here talking about that age-old problem with the royal families? Or you could argue this with celebrities more generally, is that they want to use their fame, their celebrity, to bring attention to the causes that they support and they care about. And you've got to think here of mental health, and the announcement just yesterday that Harry was teaming up with Oprah Winfrey and Apple TV to do a documentary on mental health. And yet, where do you draw the line between using their fame to bring attention to causes and therefore keeping your private family life private? That is a difficult line to draw. It's difficult for everyone in it to navigate, whether you're in the press, whether you're in the royal family, whether you're in the royal communications team. It is a very difficult area to navigate, isn't it?
I think it's all about expectation. I do think that actually, however high profile you are and however senior you are in the royal family, you do have an expectation to a private life, and so should your children. And the media need to have an expectation of respecting that, and we do. Of course, members of the royal family have always used their position, go back to Diana and way before, to bring attention to causes that they want to champion, and they bring their fame and their profile to do that.
King George VI and Queen Elizabeth did it in the Second World War to say that we will carry on.
Yes, but that doesn't mean that you then automatically expose your child to as much exposure as we would like.
But isn't it true to say that the precedent that's been set by William and Kate and their 3 children is that, OK, they provided the photograph that the whole world wanted, but actually, by and large, those children have been left in privacy?
I mean, they've released photographs often taken by Kate for birthdays. We've seen George on his first day at school. We had a photo of Charlotte on her first day of nursery. They've given a little bit, and then for that, expected privacy.
And they've got it, by and large. They have. So actually, there's the sort of friction that you're talking about. William and Kate have done it very well. They have, you know, they are a future king and queen, and yet their children have, you know, their image has been very carefully controlled. We haven't seen them sort of out and about on as many photographs as we saw with William and Harry when they were young. So I think they've done it very well. And if that's, you know, if Harry and Meghan want to take a little step back even from that, then I suppose that's their choice.
Yes, but it's a template, it's a model, if you like, that is working for the Cambridges in terms of giving their children at least some element of privacy. I mean, how many pictures have you seen of Prince George at school other than the one that was arranged? Blimey, it was the year before last now, wasn't it, when he had his first day at school?
Nothing.
And the same will be for Charlotte this year when she goes to school in September.
We know Prince Louis is about to turn 1, and we may see some official photographs, but apart from that, we see the occasional, you know, Christmas card, and that's it. So it just goes to show that the media are very respectful. Publications don't tend to use paparazzi pictures, and it works.
Let's talk about this issue of respect, because I mean, I put on Twitter earlier, we're going to have this discussion, any questions, and as you probably well know, on Twitter now you get a sort of deluge of a lot of it is negative, a lot of it is abusive, a lot of it is positive.
Yes.
I'm just trying to have a scroll through about what we've got on Twitter. I mean, a lot of it looks like, I mean, and again, this is a narrative that seems to be coming from certain areas of social media, that the UK media has been intolerant of Meghan. They have been quote unquote racist towards Meghan and everything else. Give it a rest. This is their choice. You know, why are we even discussing it here? You could say, why are we discussing it here? What is it? Our, you know, we don't have a right to know how they're going to have their child or what they're going to do with their child. The UK media is getting a very bad press, if I can put it in those terms, on social media from other parts of the world, particularly from America.
Something I find extremely frustrating, because if you look at our coverage over the last 2 or 3 years of Meghan, and particularly since she became engaged to Harry, UK newspapers and broadcasters have given Harry and Meghan enormous, I mean, acres of positive coverage, not just about the events they've attended and their engagements they've attended, you know, the wedding, all her patronage she's chosen. She gets a rapturous public reception wherever she goes.
And with Harry, Invictus Games, mental health, heads together.
Everything he's ever done, Centre Barley, you know, they have had, all members of the royal family have suffered negative press. That's not to say, that's not to justify it. It's just a fact. Harry and Meghan are not being singled out. Meghan is not being singled out for anything. We give her enormous amounts of...
So you think of the SmartWorks charity she went to, that's got a lot of publicity. If you look at the Mayhew Animal Charity, and they're all actually saying, and they've some of them have contacted me directly to say, we have had X amount of money come in through the publicity.
And we report that.
And we report that, and hopefully that encourages
global
more
Sussex
people.
baby shower.
I think there's a real issue at the moment with people conflating UK media, you know, reputable media, with what's going on social media, which we have no control over. And the likes of George Clooney are conflating, you know, using these phrases like she's being pursued and attacked. I'm afraid I take issue with that. And you have to make a distinction between the two. And I think people aren't at the moment. And that's the problem. That's not to say she hasn't got some negative press. Of course she has. So has the Queen. So have all members of the royal family when things have gone slightly wrong or things have come out that, you know, they wanted kept in private that have come out in the public. That's how it rolls. And
when I do, and I don't always engage with people on the notifications on Twitter, I say, well, actually, do you want to go back through all of my reports and tell me which one of these was either negative or racist or in any other way sort of negative towards Meghan? Because there hasn't been one there, because I have never done one like that. And but you'll know from social media there is a lot of criticism, and they tend to... The view has been formed in some quarters on social media that all of the UK press is out to get Meghan.
Yeah, they've just lumped us into one, and you're right, there's a real difference between the reputable mainstream media and what's going on potentially with stuff online, and I think it's unfair to put us all in one just basket.
Yes, I mean, listen, I've had so many notifications I can't quite keep up with them, but some of them are like, you know, maybe they should step away from the privileged life of the royals and live a completely private life. Well, you know, I suppose that's an entirely different argument about whether or not you have a royal family. But I mean, I suppose that leads me on to the next point, which is the Instagram account. So we mentioned yesterday the way in which they're using their publicity to bring attention to causes. Apple TV, Oprah, a series on mental health. And then an Instagram account, which they launched, when was it, last Monday?
Tuesday, I think.
OK, last week. So 7, 8, 9 days ago, and it's got when I last checked,
4.5
4.4 million. It's
yeah.
probably now 4.5, 4.6 million. That's a lot of followers on Instagram. They have an amazing power, and they're using their status to bring attention to a lot of good causes, and they've actually named a number of charities, haven't they, which they want people to donate to in lieu of gifts.
Yes, all of which the UK media has covered exactly that. When they announced last week that, please, rather than send gifts, well wishes, please, donate to these charities, and that went on the Instagram account, and the UK media covered that and talked about it and what a positive thing it was. Of course, there's precedent for that, because when William and Kate got married, they asked for people, instead of to donate
yes.
gifts, to give to charities. So
it's not as if they need a toaster or a kettle.
No, and we saw from the official gift list last week that baby Sussex is already very well stocked, not even born, but has
in teddies.
So many gifts.
Yes.
So yes, I think we've got to remember that a lot of the positive things they're doing, we are reporting in a very positive way.
Yes, exactly, and the gifts do keep coming, and the donations keep coming, which is a good thing. And this baby, even before it's born, is bringing a lot of money to a lot of charities because of some of these online campaigns. #Global Sussex Baby Shower.
Something like that. Yeah, and then they've nominated 4 of their own charities, and some of them have contacted us to say how much money's coming in from that. So yeah, it's really positive.
And talking of the Instagram account, I mean, if you are to study it in the way in which we all probably do, it's quite clear, and there's no reason why she shouldn't do this, but it's quite clear the Duchess of Sussex is writing those posts herself, not leaving it to the members of the communication team. That would be my reading of the posts that I've seen. I
think she's definitely been, my understanding is she's definitely been very hands-on, and I'm not sure she's writing every single word herself, but she's certainly having a big input into. I mean, you could see some of the things last week mentioned her. The Duchess of Sussex was unable to join the Duke of Sussex, and some of the language is definitely quite Meghan, I think.
Yeah.
But that's fair enough. She's on her maternity leave. She was very, very good at Instagram back at the day. Yeah. She had a blog called The Tig. She was prolific on Instagram and social media, all of which was shut down.
A relief that she can actually do that.
She's thrilled. And that Instagram account that it's interesting you mentioned, it's already a global powerhouse. It broke the Guinness Book of World Records for the fastest ever account to get more than 1 million followers. So it's going to be a massive tool for them. It's going to be a massive media tool for them. And she's good at social media. She knows what she's doing.
All I need to do now is actually tag one of our posts on ITV News Royals, and that would help us enormously. I'm just saying, if they fancy it.
There's also some old personal pictures of theirs. There's one of them with an elephant, tagging an elephant in Botswana that we hadn't seen before. That's obviously come from their collection. So kind of a bit more of an insight into work that they've been doing that maybe we didn't know about.
And the thing is, one of the reasons why I think the Duchess of Sussex put so much effort into those patronages that she announced and had a very high profile at the beginning of the year is because probably she's going to take at least 6, maybe slightly longer months maternity leave, so we won't see very much of this new global star in the royal family for many months now.
I'd be interested to see how long she takes. I think that'll be a very personal decision, but Meghan is a real go-getter, and even if she takes 9 months maternity leave, that's not to say we won't see her out and about. Yes. I think she'll get cracking on a few things before 9 months, Chris.
Rather cheekily, I should say that if she's feeding the baby through the night, then actually there'll be a reason for sending 5 a.m. emails.
No comment.
Which has been that has been written. Anyway, listen, I think we've probably sort of summed up what's going to happen. All we don't know at the moment is when the little thing, he or she, is going to come. So.
Any minute, within weeks, I shouldn't say within days, within weeks. I mean, she said when they did that engagement
in Birkenhead,
end of April, beginning of May. So effectively, any time now.
Any time now.
So
stand by.
The Queen's birthday, and Louis's birthday, I presume Easter.
We don't know which hospital it will be at, so all of us are very likely to be in Windsor on the long walk somewhere where we were for the wedding. Just without the crowds, saying that Frogmore House, where they're now living, is over that bush over there somewhere.
Well, if things go their way, baby Sussex will be born at Frogmore Cottage. If there are any complications or they decide, perhaps let's be on even safer side, it's going to be a hospital nearer them in Windsor.
And just to recap, because we probably should have done this at the top, but the splits happened. They've moved out of Kensington Palace. The reason why we will be in Windsor is because that is now their official residence, Frogmore Cottage, on the estate next to the lovely Frogmore House where they had their wedding reception last May. And the staff are all about to sort of move over to Buckingham Palace. So this is This is in transition.
Transitional time. It's
Yes.
a transitional time for the royal family all round, isn't it?
Yes.
But yes, interesting times and lots of new strategies being developed. And I think, as we've seen with the statement, this is just the start.
And about to get more interesting with the arrival of the newest member of the royal family and the 7th in line to the throne. So we will probably all have this discussion again in Windsor in front of lots of other cameras. I doubt there'll be as many as there were at the Lindo wing, but we'll be there, won't we?
We sure will be.
I hope the British weather will be
with
kind
us
to
too.
us. Because actually, I do remember when Louis was born last year, it was actually quite cold standing outside the Lindo wing. A little bit chilly. Do you remember? Windy day.
I do. I also remember the heat wave for Prince George. So
I don't,
somewhere
you
in
see.
between would be
Yes,
ideal.
We're not talking about the weather, then can't be British.
Well, indeed. Although I think as Meghan said something recently, I can't remember which engagement she was at, maybe it was at Canada House, when she said, we're Canadians, we talk about the weather a lot as well, because they obviously have greater extremes than
Weathers
we do.
and royal babies, what's not to love?
Right. We've covered everything on this programme today. Lovely to have you in. Thank you so much for being with us and sharing your expertise, your analysis, your insightful views. Lizzie, thank you very much as well. And we will do this again sometime. I suspect the next time we'll do this will be when the baby, he or she, is with us, and we look forward to sharing that news with you. In the meantime, thanks for continuing to watch the Royal Rota. It's a pleasure having you with us. Continue to let us know what you think about it, positive or sometimes negative, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.